welcome back or welcome if you're new. My name is Kyan and this is Kyan is Booked. And today we're going to be talking about some delicious age gap romances that I love and or have been obsessed with for a while, or some recent favorites of mine as I have read a few in the last couple of weeks and really enjoyed them. But first off, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can get notifications every time a video goes live. I have a lot of really fun recommendation videos coming up and some reading vlogs that I'm excited to drop. And basically would just love to have you as a book bestie. With all of that out of the way, be sure to like, and we're gonna head straight into the recommendations. A series that I will always forever rec to you, a series that is always on my list or always on my mind, one that is quite prominent in a good portion of my videos and a good portion of my Instagram photos, and that is gonna be the Fallen Men series. So I picked my two favorite ones, and that is gonna be Lessons in Corruption with King and Cress, and then this is going to be Inked in Lies, which is book number 5 in the series, and this follows Casanova, aka Nova, and Lila. And these two books hold a very special place in my heart for me. I know that a lot of people don't love Lessons in Corruption, and every time I hear someone talk about how they don't necessarily love Cress, it really just like kind of breaks my heart, because Cress is definitely living for the very first time in her entire life. And she's incredibly immature because she's always had her parents making decisions for her or her husband making decisions for her. And now that she's decided to kind of like embark on her own life, she's really making a lot of mistakes that a lot of us made like in our early years. She's a lot older, and she's the older one in this relationship, but you know, she, like King says a lot in this book, like she hasn't done a whole lot of living, and it's definitely like kind of like watching that growth for her. And King, you know, this is a student-teacher romance. It's very like taboo. It's definitely forbidden. It's an age gap because she is significantly older than he is. And I love King, and I love just how much he embraces how much she needs to live. And this is the beginning of the Fallen Men series. So they're the first couple that we see. King is the son to Zeus, and Zeus is the president of the Fallen Men. And it is always assumed that King is going to graduate, and he's going to patch in, and he's going to be a brother, and then he's eventually going to take over the club from Zeus. Zeus is the second book, and his is also an age gap. I'm pretty positive the majority of the books in this series are an age gap, but like I said, I picked my two favorites. And King and Cress are just always going to hold a very special place in my heart, because at the time in my life when I read this series, when I started and I picked Lessons in Corruption up for the first time, I was not necessarily someone who was forced into like, I've never been married. My parents didn't make decisions for me, but I really saw a lot of myself in Cress, in somebody who like needs to be given the opportunity to live, and who really needs to go out and stop making choices for other people and start making choices for herself. So I related a lot to like the feeling of like wondering if I'm good enough, or like wondering if I'm making the right decision, or would I disappoint other people. And so I really definitely like recognized where she was coming from. And like, my gosh, King, I love him because he like latched onto her pretty early on and realized like how much he cared for her. And our boy was like definitely like obsessed with her. And this is a really great introduction into just the Fallen Men in general. Like I said, this is the first book in the series. So this sets up a lot of our later couples, definitely sets up the next book in the series. And you can read them as standalones, but I think that they are better enjoyed like in order. And King and Cress, they just hold a very special place in my heart. Inked in Lies, like I said, follows Nova and Lila, and they're together because Nova's there during like a really pivotal portion of like her life, and like his family ends up fostering hers, if I remember it correctly. And he's there on like probably the most horrific portion of her night. Nova and her older brother are really good friends. You know, he's seen her through a lot of like really difficult portions in her life, and she's been in love with him her entire life, essentially. And it gets to the point where like she's not really sure like he's ever gonna see her for who she is and like who she wants him to see her as. There's this like really beautiful quote, and like I don't want to butcher it, but it has a lot to do with the fact that like all the tattoos on her body, like he's done, and like he's drawn these like beautiful flowers upon her body, but like doesn't he realize that like she's blooming for him, and like she attempts to move on, and Nova's like finally getting his head out of his rear end, and like it's just this like really beautiful love story of like people like muddling their way through trying to be together. And I love Nova because I mean it's Nova, like come on now, like we've seen him in multiple books. He's definitely ride or die for King, so like I love that about him. And I like really appreciate the fact that like when push came to shove and like he had to make important decisions about his life, like he was able to do that. And I really like the fact too that like their relationship didn't blossom until like Lila was really able to like kind of make those decisions for herself. But it truly is like a very beautiful story between the two of them, and I definitely recommend it. Next up, I've got Fractured Sky by Catherine Cowles. So this is book 5 in the Tattered and Torn series. And this is the story between Shiloh and Ramsey. So Shiloh was kidnapped in like when she was younger, and she was held captive by a extremist of a person. And so this is her coming out to her family and saying like, hey, like I need to move on, like I need to move out. Her and Ramsey have like, they have this weird friendship almost. Like she'll come and she'll just sit outside the pasture on his horse ranch and like watch him train horses who like need to be rehabilitated because like they're fearful of they're coming from abusive situations. So she'll come and she'll just sit and like watch him, and they've built this like friendship over the years. And she starts talking to him about like how suffocated she feels at home, and how she's not even really sure if she's making any decisions like on her own or if everybody else is just making decisions for her. And Ramsey's like, okay, well, like, why don't you move in here? Like, I have a state-of-the-art security system. Like, you'll be safe here. I've got a cabin. You can stay with me. You can kind of try and figure some things out for yourself. Like, there'll be no judgment. And yeah, like I will, like I'll be there for you. So it's a really beautiful story of like two people who are like very broken in like their own trauma, because Ramsey has a lot that he's dealing with on his own as well. But it's a really beautiful story of the two of them like coming together and like being there for each other. So this is my favorite series from Catherine Cowles, and Shiloh and Ramsey are still my favorite couple. And this is actually a special edition that she did signings a little bit ago. So it's signed to me, and I got it, where did I go? I was at Reader's Take Denver that I got this edition. So definitely obsessed with it. And I just think it's like a really beautiful story of like two people being there for each other, like through their trauma and like through their healing. Next up, I have Nocticadia, and this is by Carrie Lake, and I've got the really pretty purple sprayed edges. I'm very much obsessed with this edition. But Jess and I actually read this for The Good, the Bad, the Smutty. It was a book club pick. It is, it's really gross. Okay, it's not, the whole book isn't really gross, but just understand that anytime we're talking about like the things that they're investigating, or let's just say Carrie Lake is very realistic in how she explains things, and there were periods of time where I was like, ugh. But Deverick and Lil, if you will. It's this professor-student situation, and she gets invited to this prestigious academy university. Gets invited to this prestigious university because she wrote this like really amazing paper, and everybody's after her because the paper's just so good, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff, right? And it was a paper about a specific disease that killed her mother, but nobody was able to like diagnose the disease, but Deverick knows what the disease is and is actively working towards an antidote for it, right? A lot more happens. There's like this whole evil plot that they have to uncover, and there's this whole big situation as well between them. But I just think that the love story is like really because Deverick is not used to like caring for people or like being with other people, so it really takes him unawares when he starts to truly have feelings for her. And then for her, she knows that she's breaking like all of society's rules by being with him, and she can't get kicked out of university because where's she gonna go back to? Like, she's gonna go back to her mother's boyfriend, who is only putting up with her because she's paying half the rent. So she's in a very precarious like personal situation, but there is something about like the connection that the two of them have that prevents her from being able to just like walk away from it all. It is very interesting. It is very captivating. I read this like in close to one sitting. The only reason why I stopped is because I did have to go to work, which was tragic for me. But I really did like it. I think it's a really good one to read too, like in October, like around that time when like you want like those types of vibes. Also too, like I'm not mentioning the fact that there are age gaps because like this entire video is about age gaps, but just know there's plenty of age gaps in these. Next up, I have Reign of a King by Rena Kent. So this is Jonathan King's book. And if you read why can I not place that first series? So his son Aiden is the Royal Elite series. He has the trilogy with Elsa. And so we know who Jonathan King is. He is definitely a very prominent businessman. And this is his duet with his dead wife's sister. I had to like think about it for a second. Aurora. So she shows up at, I don't even know what situation she showed up at. It becomes this whole big situation. Aiden thinks his mom's back from the dead, but really it's her sister. And then Jonathan's like, how dare you show up here, blah, blah, blah. They strike this really weird bargain. And then it's just like, it's on from there, essentially. I really loved it. Jonathan is, if you have met him in the earliest, like the previous books, then he's absolutely everything that like you expect him to be. And chef's kiss, we love him. And we love the fact that we kind of get to see the Royal Elite crew as well. And I really just like the fact that like he finally got his happily ever after so much went wrong for him in the earlier books. The reason why his wife is dead is like incredibly tragic. And I love the fact that like he gets like a redemption arc in this one, because I wasn't the biggest fan of him, but like this definitely kind of turned the tides for me. And I ended up being like a huge Jonathan fan. So I definitely recommend the duet. If you have the opportunity to, if you have the opportunity to read it, definitely should dive in there. You don't have to read everything else in the Renaverse. I read everything in order. I actually have a reading vlog for it, so I'll pop that in the description box below. I'll link it for you, but I read everything in order, so I don't know what the experience is like to not do that, but I had a really, really good time with this one. Next up, one of my new faves is A.L. Jackson. So this is Under an Endless Moon. This is Moonlit Ridge. This is her most recent release, I believe. This follows Otto and Raven. And let's set this up. So if you read the first book, then River is Otto's best friend and Raven's brother. Okay, so this is the type of situation where like it's very much like a found family situation. So they they ran away from home. River and Raven ran away from home at a very early age because of how abusive Raven's dad was. And so they meet up with Otto and the rest of the crew that we see within the series. And Otto and Raven have always had like this like really strong bond between the two of each other. But the problem is like Otto made a promise to River that like he wouldn't ever make a pass at his sister, and that it was going to be nothing but a platonic relationship, and that he would never cross that line, etc., right? But like the older they get, like that stronger the connection becomes, right? So fast forward to now, where an old enemy is coming for like the entire group. They're not sure who it is. They're not sure why they're coming. They're only kind of leaving like random calling cards, and it seems like they're really starting to come after Raven, which is not sitting well with Otto because his feelings are so far from sisterly when it comes to her, and he's so into her and obsessed with her at this point in time. And Raven's having a really hard time moving on from Otto because she doesn't think that like he's ever gonna see her for her, and she's getting like increasingly more and more frustrated with the whole situation. And she knows that like a big reason why he's never gonna like make that leap or like take that next step is gonna be because of her brother, but she cares for him deeply and she wants to be with him. So it really just comes down to what was I saying? It really just comes down to like the relationship that like she's unwilling to like ruin with her brother, but also to the relationship that Otto's unwilling to give up as well. So Ultimately, at the end of the day, they're pushed together because she walks in on her brother and Charlie and her are best friends. And she's like, oh, I can't stay here anymore. Like, this is too awkward, blah, 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 blah. And so she ends up just being like, you know what, like, I'll move out. And then she moves in with Otto because she's in, like, the process of trying to find a place to live. So I definitely recommend this. At the end, I was very, very surprised on how it ended because I didn't expect her to be like as deeply tied into everything as she was. Okay. Last recommendation, I have the fancy Dark and Disturbed editions, but this is Dom. This is book 3 in the Alliance series by S.J. Tilley, and this follows Dominic, aka Dom, and his lady Val, and their meet cute is like super crazy because Dom is trying to inch his way into the Alliance, and Val is stepbrother, I don't know, is it King or is it Nero? I don't know. I can't remember. Either way, this is a really crazy ride of like how they end up. It almost seems like a marriage of convenience type situation, but then he becomes like absolutely obsessed with her and has to like be with her 24/7, and then he slowly starts to realize that he actually has like very deep-seated feelings for her, and it's not necessarily just the fact that he wants in the Alliance. Like, that's going to be a really great like caveat to everything, but he has to like be with her. So it's a wild ride. And I don't know, like, if he calls her Valentine or if her name is actually Valentine, but, like, we call her Val the whole time. The craziest scene in this entire situation is, like, when she throws a whole fit and gets, like, super angry about a situation and, like, tosses her ring out the window. And, like, that's not a spoiler. That was just, like, a moment where I was like, is she crazy or is she onto something? I don't know. I don't care. This was my favorite one in the series, but then obviously Hans came out and like that one, like, you know, definitely took the cake there. I don't know what it is about Hans, but I just love him. But I definitely love like the overprotective, like possessive hero in this. I love the fact that when like they finally were able to have a conversation, it definitely ended up in a way that like Val and Dom can both be happy about. And I really liked the way that like she took to being like a mafia wife, I guess is the best way to say it. So I highly recommend like this series in general. Like, you will not find a series that like really hard hits like all 4 books. So with Belle's pitter patter in the background, I am going to go ahead and end this video. There are 7 recs right there for any age gap romances. Let me know in the comment box below if you have any recommendations or suggestions, so I can add them to my TBR. And as always, I will catch you in the next video. Bye.